Before we get into today's game, I want to talk about the sponsors for my channel. Card Conduit is the best way to sell your unused magic cards. Whether you've got a box of unsorted bulk, or a complete and alphabetized set, there's a great option for everyone. With a payout averaging 19% better than using any one buy list, and that's after fees are applied, you can rest assured you'll get the best bang for your buck. And if you use the affiliate link in the description below, or the promo code MTGMUDSTA, you'll save 10% off their fees. And 401 Games, Canada's one-stop shop for trading cards, board games, and hobby supplies. And if you use the promo code MTGMUDSTA, your first purchase of MTG sealed and singles will be 5% off. And Dragon Shield, the strongest sleeves for your strongest deck. So be sure to use the code MUDSTA or the affiliate link down below to save 5% on your next order. Today's patron shoutout goes to Adam. Thanks Adam for supporting me through Patreon. Hey gang, and welcome back. Today's game finds Mr. Bevers, Davey, Neo Royale, and myself playing. Unfortunately, we were so excited to get down and get some games going, we forgot to record opening hands. But in today's game, Davey is playing her Seizan deck, Neo Royale is playing the Winter Cynical Opportunist Precon, Mr. Bevers is playing the Aminatou Veil Piercer Precon, and I'm playing my Niko Light of Hope deck. Neo wins the die roll and starts us off. He draws, plays a forest, and passes. I've got to tap Celestial Colonnade and pass turn. Mr. B's got a Tainted Isle, and he taps it for 1 to cast Brainstone. Davey draws, plays a Swamp, and casts a Wayfarer's Bauble. She passes after that. Neo Royale draws, plays a land, and then casts a Deathcap Cultivator. I've got a Plains for turn, and pay 2 for a Talisman of Progress. Mr. Bevers draws, plays a Swamp, and casts Azorius Signet. He ships the turn after that. Davey's turn has her playing a snow-covered swamp, and she pays 2 for a Jet Medallion, and it's cool to see everyone having something to do on turn 2. Neo's turn has him drawing, and main phase casting a Grizzly Salvage. He keeps Llanowar Waste from the top 5, and bins the rest, playing it for turn. He then casts a Grim Flare, and passes. I draw, and play a Plains. I then cast my commander Niko, and as they come in, make 2 shard tokens, and pass. Mr. Bevers draws, and plays a tap Temple of Silence, scrying 1, and keeping it on top. He then plays a Diabolic Vision, and passes turn. Davey's got another snow-covered swamp for turn, and she then pays 1 for an Expedition map. She follows that up by cracking the Wayfarer's Bauble to save some time, and goes to search for a basic as she passes. Neo's got a Swamp for turn, and he casts Winter. Going to combat, he swings the Grim Flare at Davey, and she takes the hit for 4. Neo gets to Surveil 3, and then moves to his end step. He gets his Winter trigger, exiling Giant Adaphage, Grizzly Salvage, a land, and Grist, and he puts Giant Adaphage onto the board with a finality counter. I draw for turn, and play a Plains. I then cast a Prosperous Thief. Once it's out, I activate Niko to flicker the thief, and then go to combat. I swing my ninjas at Mr. Bevers and Davey, and they each take 3, and since I control 2 copies of the ninjas, I get to make 4 treasures. After that, I pass turn. Mr. Bevers draws, plays a Plains, and casts Aminatou. He passes after that. Davey's turn has her drawing, and playing a Castle Lochthwain. She then pays 3 black for an Underworld Dreams, and passes. Neo draws, and loses 1 to the Underworld Dreams. He then casts Night's Whisper, and draws 2 more, but loses a total of 4 from that as well. He then plays a Golgari Rot Farm, bouncing a land back to his hand, and follows up with an Ursine Monstrosity. Going to combat, he mills 1 for the Monstrosity, but it's still summoning 6 so he can't attack. He swings Winter at Davey, Grim Flare at Mr. Bevers, and the Giant Adaphage goes at me. With Winter attacking, he gets to mill 3, and then surveils 3 from the Grim Flare connecting. He also gets to make another Giant Adaphage token. He then moves to his end step, exiling some cards with Winter to bring back a Demolisher spawn. And before leaving his end step, I flash in a Restoration Angel, flickering Niko, and as Niko comes in, I make 2 more shards. I draw and lose 1, and then play an Adhikar Wastes. I cast an Azorius Signet, and then exile my Restoration Angel with Niko. Going to combat, I swing my 4 shards that are Restoration Angels at Neo, dealing 12, and he takes the hit. After that, I move to my end step, and the Angel comes back in, and once more flickers Niko. Mr. Bevers gets to Surveil on his upkeep, and once he's done that, draws for turn, and then casts an Ancient Cellar Spawn with Miracle. He then cracks the Brainstone, taking 3 from the Underworld Dream since he draws 3, and once that's done, plays a Hall of Heliod's Generosity. He then passes turn, and Davy cracks the Expedition map to go and find Cabal Coffers as Mr. Bevers passes. Davy draws and plays her signature card, Cabal Coffers. She then activates it for 4 mana and casts Damnation. The board is then wiped, and she uses the rest of her mana to help cast Seizan and passes turn. Neo draws 3 and loses life thanks to Seizan and Underworld Dreams. He then plays a Swamp for turn and recasts Winter. He then moves through his phases, but doesn't have Delirium active for Winter's ability during his end step. I just draw, play a Plains, and recast Niko. This makes me 2 more shard tokens, and I then play a land tax and pass. Mr. B draws 3 and plays a Thriving Isle, naming black as it comes in. He then recasts Aminatou and passes. Davy draws her 3, but only loses 2 to Seizan, and she then plays a Swamp for turn. She then pays 2 to activate Cabal Coffers, making 5 black mana, and using some of it to cast Erebos, God of the Dead. She then follows up with Starscream, and goes to combat. She swings Starscream at me, making me the Monarch, and I then take the hit for 2. With nothing else, she passes. Neo draws his cards and takes 5, and then plays a Forest for turn. He casts an Arcane Signet, and follows up with an Inscription of Abundance to have Niko fight with Winter. I respond to this by casting Force of Negation to counter it, and Neo then follows up with a Polluted Cistern. He then casts a Skola Grove Dancer, and he moves to combat. He swings Winter at Mr. Bevers, and Neo gets to mill 3 cards from his library, and Neo's opponents all take 3 from the Cistern, and Mr. B then takes 2 from Winter. Going to his end step, Neo Royale has Delirium active, and he gets back Renmaw with Winter's ability, giving us each a goaded bird as it comes in, and then passes turn. My turn has my land tax trigger going off of my upkeep, and I find 3 lands to put to hand, and then move to my draw step and draw 3 cards and lose some life. I then play a Plains, and I cast Angel of Invention, making 2 servos to fabricate. Davy activates Erebos in response twice, drawing 2 cards and losing some life, but doesn't find any removal. I then cast an Arcane Signet, and once my mana rock is out, I activate Niko on the Angel of Invention to exile it. This has the shards all becoming a copy of the Angel of Invention, and they all pump the other ones, making them all a total of 9 8s. I then do some quick math and swing the appropriate amount at everyone, and since they've got no blockers, I'm able to take everyone out and win through combat. Game review time. This game was a bit of a short one. It was about 46 minutes and some odd seconds. I can get an exact amount, but I don't think it really matters when it breaks down to it. And we got to play a lot of the new Duskmourn pre-constructed deck commanders and one from the main set. And, you know, just some fun with Seizan, who's a demon and I think would fit in really well with Duskmourn anyway. Davy's Duskmourn deck was painful. I mean, most Seizan decks built are. They tend to focus on hand hate and then forcing your opponents to draw and taking a lot of damage, which, I mean, Davy was doing. I think everyone's turn, I think they were taking about 5 and getting some extra cards, which, you know, isn't bad. But I think what she needed was more interaction on the board. The Damnation was great, it cleared the board, But the downside was, in a deck like against mine, Niko, the board wipe wasn't that punishing since my shards stuck around. And as we saw, I kept getting more and more and more, which made all the subsequent creatures that I cast that much more dangerous, since all of a sudden those shards could become copies of them, which, as you saw with the Angel of Invention, was potentially lethal. Outside of that, I thought that Aminatou got to miracle something, which is cool. But again, I think the deck would really do well tweaked. I think the fact is the Precon has a lot of good cards, does really well, but it was just unfortunately too slow. What isn't slow though, and which is the one I'm probably going to recommend after the Rakdos one, is the Winter Cynical Opportunist deck. That deck seems awesome every time I see it in action, and when I played it, it was super fun. There's the right amount of milling and the right amount of delirium cards and the right amount of like multi-classed or typed cards. And you're basically almost always getting something at the end of turn if you're able to attack with Winter. And it's awesome. And all the cards that you bring back typically do something really impactful, like the Giant Adaphage. Giant Adaphage with a finality counter is not the end of the world, since chances are if you're able to connect at least once, that means they have to do a complete board wipe. Otherwise your token's going to stick around, which will then make tokens, which will then make tokens and tokens and tokens and tokens, which is just super sweet. Otherwise, this was great. I love playing with these Canadian content creators. I've been having a blast posting the games, and hopefully you've been enjoying them. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, but it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.